Okay, let's jump right in. We're about to take a look at the words of this really fascinating, kind of mysterious ancient thinker named Agur. His thoughts are tucked away in the book of Proverbs, and they're basically a short, powerful guide for how to deal with a world that, well, often feels way too big and way too complicated. It's a timeless lesson in finding some balance.
So get this, Agur doesn't start with some big, bold claim or a list of secrets to success. He starts right here, with a confession that feels incredibly modern. I just don't get it. And this isn't him being falsely humble, you know? It's the real, honest-to-goodness starting line for anyone who's ever felt completely swamped by the universe. For Agur, wisdom, it actually begins when you admit you don't have all the answers.
And this really brings us to the big question we're going to tackle. How do you find your footing when you feel so small? Agur's journey, from admitting he knows nothing to sharing some really profound insights, it just might be the map we need in our own search for meaning.
So, before he even thinks about offering solutions, Agur first just leans into that feeling of being small. He becomes the humble questioner, kind of just staring up at the sky, trying to get his head around the infinite.
And what's so cool about these questions is that he's not actually expecting an answer. It's not a quiz. What he's doing is painting a picture of a power so huge, so far beyond what a person can understand, that it puts all his own problems into perspective. It's his way of saying, there are forces at play here that are way, way beyond my control.
Okay, and this is where Agur pivots. He goes from what he doesn't know to what he does know. After thinking about the infinite, he brings his focus way down to something very human and super practical. The idea that the wisest path isn't about getting more, it's about finding balance.
I mean, he boils his whole wish list for life down to just two things. First, he asks for truth, to live a life that's real and honest. And second, he asks to be kept away from the temptations that come with the extremes of either being super rich or dirt poor.
And here's why this is so smart. He sees a specific danger hiding on both sides. On the one hand, if you have too much, it can make you arrogant. You start to feel so self-sufficient that you forget your place and ask, who needs God? But on the other hand, having too little can lead to total desperation, pushing you to do things you'd never normally do, like steal. Both ends of the spectrum, they can corrupt you.
And this is his solution, and it's just brilliant. He doesn't ask for a huge fortune or for all his problems to vanish. He just prays for just enough. The wisdom here is all about contentment, about finding that safe, stable middle ground where you have what you need. That way, you're free from both the pride of wealth and the desperation of poverty.
So now that he's laid out this philosophy of just enough, Agur looks to the world around him for proof. And to show the danger of the alternative, he starts by pointing out these forces in nature that are just never satisfied. They're defined by this bottomless, dangerous appetite for more.
And he presents his evidence in this really memorable rhythm, a list of 4. It's a classic teaching trick to make the lesson stick in your head. So what are these 4 things that never, ever say that's enough?
He lists the grave, which, always has room for one more. The barren womb, a powerful symbol of unfulfilled longing. Land that's so dry it can soak up endless rain and still be thirsty. And fire, which will just keep consuming everything it can touch as long as it has fuel. They're all these perfect natural metaphors for a desire that, if you don't keep it in check, only leads to destruction.
But, and this is so important, for every example of that destructive hunger, Agur finds a counterpoint. He also sees incredible wisdom in the world, and brilliantly, he finds it in the smallest, most overlooked creatures. He contrasts those insatiable forces with a second list of 4 creatures that, even though they're weak, are just models of wisdom.
And here we go again with that same powerful rhythm of 4. There are 4 things on earth that are small, he says, yet they are extremely wise. Let's take a look at what each one can teach us.
So, the ants teach us about preparation. The hyraxes, they're these small rock-dwelling animals. They teach us about security, finding safety in a solid foundation. The locusts show us the power of cooperation, how you can achieve incredible things through unity. And the lizard teaches adaptability, how to make a home even in the most powerful places. What Agur's showing us is that wisdom isn't about size or strength. It's about strategy, foresight, and teamwork.
All right, so after looking at the vastness of the universe and the tiny wisdom of nature, Agur brings it all home with one last incredibly practical piece of advice. He wraps things up with a simple warning about self-control.
He uses this really simple physical comparison to explain a deep emotional truth. He wants to show us that some results are just as predictable as gravity. You do certain things, and certain other things will always happen.
Let's break this down. It's so straightforward. Just as surely as churning cream makes butter, and just as surely as twisting someone's nose leads to blood, stirring up anger, whether it's in yourself or in someone else, will always lead to conflict. It's an inescapable law of how we work. The ultimate wisdom, then, is to just not start churning in the first place.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Agur's whole philosophy, from his big cosmic questions right down to his practical warnings, it all points to this one core idea. In our culture, a culture that's constantly celebrating having the most, being the best, pushing every single limit, Agur's quiet little prayer for moderation feels both ancient and, honestly, revolutionary. It leaves us with a question to carry with us. What could we gain, not by striving for more, but by finding the wisdom in having just enough?